Om Shri Harim Paramanandam Upadeshtaram Ishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham. We were on verse 58. We saw last time a very important verse, 57, where an important fact was mentioned. The world, though it appears, and though it is all relative usage, empirical dealings, transactions can continue, still it's not real. You actually experience it. And you can use things there. You can drive a car and you can drink water and satisfy thirst. Everything works. And yet it's not real. How is that possible? The example that was given was the dream world, the experience of your dreams. Do you remember the verse number 56? That was verse number 56. A very important verse. Just as in a dream world, in our dreams, we see it. We see people. We see things. You may feel thirst, and there is water. And dream thirst is satisfied by dream water. But when you wake up, the whole thing is a dream. So it is seen, it is experienced, and it works, and yet it's not real. This is important because people have many different kinds of ideas about enlightenment. One idea is that when you are enlightened, this world won't appear to you. You will see something else, or you'll see only light, or something like that. Something quite different will appear to you. No. The experience of the world will continue exactly like this. If you've got eyes, you will see forms. If you've got ears, you'll hear sounds. If you have a mind, you will think thoughts. But you will be able to ascertain the unreality of it all and the reality of Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. This will be ascertained. This is enlightenment. It's a shift, it's a paradigm shift, a shift of your worldview, of your spiritual worldview. Your whole idea of what you are will change, and what this world is will change completely. That is enlightenment, in Advaita Vedanta at least. Now, to illustrate that, the author, Shankaracharya, in his verse number 57, gave the example of our three states of our mind: waking, dreaming, deep sleep. He pointed out that when waking comes, when we wake up, there is neither dream nor deep sleep. And when we fall asleep, the waking world is completely forgotten, and we dream. There's a dream world. And soon the dream world ceases, deep sleep, neither waking nor dreaming. And from deep sleep we awaken again to waking, and deep sleep goes away. The three states are mutually exclusive. The three states, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. What we experience there in each state is separate. Here is your waking world. This you do not experience when you fall asleep. If you don't pay attention to Vedanta, that danger is always there. You can easily fall asleep, occupational hazard. When you fall asleep, this world will disappear. And a world of dreams will come before you, which is not here, which you are not experiencing now. What you experience in the dreams and what you experience in this waking world, they're two different things. And in deep sleep, no objects, no distinct objects are experienced. Just a blankness. What does this prove? Two things. The first is, it proves that you, the experiencer, are not limited by the states. The same one who experienced the waking world is the same one who experiences the dream world, is the same one who experiences the darkness of deep sleep. The states come and go. The worlds come and go before you. But you, the experiencer, you are common to all of them. When the waking world disappears into sleep, you do not go with it. You keep on experiencing. The consciousness which experiences all of this is separate from these states. That's number one. This consciousness is your real nature. That's the first fallout, the first implication. This body is not your real nature. How do you know that? Well, this body does not follow you into your dreams. You see, this body, where will it be when you are dreaming? When you are dreaming, the body is safe and sleeping on your bed. But you may be walking out there on the streets in the cold out there in your dream. So, the conscious, follow this carefully, you, the conscious experiencing entity, you're still there in a dream because after all, something is experiencing the dream. You, the conscious entity, is experiencing the dream. But that conscious entity is no longer experiencing itself as this body. It's experiencing itself as some projected dream body. And when the dream disappears into deep sleep, that conscious entity that is claimed in Vedanta, that's still there. Not experiencing a waking world, not experiencing a dream world, but experiencing the blankness of deep sleep. That conscious entity is one and the same. It continues throughout. That's the real you, not the body. Are you with me so far? And even the mind is not the real you. The waker's mind and the dreamer's mind and the deep sleep, no mind. In deep sleep, there's no thinking. And yet that conscious entity continues, that consciousness continues in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So it is apart from the mind, it is apart from the body. In the waking, it is experienced, it is using the body and mind. In a dream also, the mind is functional, though it's not aware of the body. And in deep sleep, it's aware of neither the body nor the mind. It's still there by itself. That's the real you. The mind and the body are like dresses you put on. The mind is like the vest you put on, and the body is like the shirt you put on over the vest. So the first fallout of this analysis is that you are not the body and not the mind. But that we have already seen. You see, when we were studying all of this till now, I told you the study has been done in 2 stages. One stage is separating the real self from the not self, Atma from Anatma. And we saw from the beginning till the 50s, till the 40th verse or so, we saw how the Atma is consciousness, self, and the body and mind are not the self. So we realized that we are not the body-mind. We are not the body-mind. We are the witness of the body-mind. That was one. Separation of the self and the not self. Separation in what sense? Separation in the sense of understanding. First of all, your whole conception, our conception about what we are, that has to change for the next stage to work. And the next stage is, the second stage, where non-duality is established. We have separated the self and the not self. The self is seen to be consciousness, and the not self, all the objects of consciousness, including body and mind. So that's the first stage. In the second stage, the not self is realized to be false. It's realized to be not a separate entity apart from the self. I'll repeat that. The not self is realized to be false. What do you mean by false? Not an independent entity apart from the self. If it's not a second entity apart from the self, the not self, in that case what we are establishing, not second, no two, non-duality, Advaita. That's what's going on now. From now on, what we have been doing in the last few classes is, we are having understood ourselves as a witness consciousness, everything else in the universe, from the mind to the body to the external universe, everything is to be resolved back into the witness consciousness. Resolved back is one way of putting it. Basically what I'm saying is, everything is to be understood as being not apart from the witness consciousness. One good way of understanding this is, in our dreams, suppose I'm dreaming and I dream that I'm walking down the street here. I can see the buildings, I can see the road, I can see the cars, I can see my own body. But suppose somebody comes and tells me, It's a dream. You are in your bed and dreaming, and this whole thing that you see, including you, that person, that body, all of this is nothing apart from the dreamer's mind. All of it is false because it's being imagined in the dreamer's mind. It's being dreamt in the dreamer's mind. All this is nothing but the mind of the dreamer. It may seem weird then, but when I wake up, it will seem true. Yes. Manhattan, the buildings and the sky and the people, including my own body, they were nothing but my mind, the dreamer's mind, projecting all of it. Exactly like that. Right now, in this waking state, all that we are experiencing in awareness. That bears repetition. Everything that we are experiencing is being experienced in our awareness. It has no existence apart from that awareness. Either you are with me and you've been following Vedanta very closely and you're perfectly all right with me, or you're not following. There should be protests at this point. Yeah. A philosophically acute person would say, are you batting for subjective idealism? Are you saying it's all in our minds? Or I don't understand how all this can be. There's nothing other than consciousness here. For two things to be separate, I've said this earlier, to prove that two things are separate. How do we know two things are separate? When they are experienced together, you cannot see them. You cannot understand they are separate. That this cloth is separate from me, to know that, you must experience the cloth apart from me and me apart from the cloth. Then you know these two things are separate, though they are appearing together now. If the world, the universe experienced in your awareness and your awareness are two separate things, then you should be able to experience the universe apart from your awareness, which is in fact logically impossible. There is no experience possible apart from awareness. Is this room, does it exist apart from your awareness? You will say yes. How? Well, you might say, well, I might not see it, I'll go out, but the other people will be there and they will see it in their awareness, so it exists apart from my awareness. But two answers to that. First of all, when you say my awareness, Vedanta says you are the awareness, whether in that body or in this body or any body. One. Second, when you say all the other people are experiencing this universe, whether I experience it or not, but the other people are also experienced by you in your awareness. Those other people around you, they don't exist except for you, except for in your experience. And no experience is possible without awareness. So it goes. That's how we have been arguing. And now he says, in verse number 58, let's come to verse number 58. Trayam evam bhaven mithya, trayam evam bhaven mithya, gunatraya vinirmitam, gunatraya vinirmitam, asya drashta gunatito, asya drashta gunatito, nityo he kaschidātmakah, nityo he kaschidātmakah. These three, which three? Waking, dreaming, deep sleep, are appearances. Appearances in what? Appearances in your consciousness, or in you, the consciousness. These three are appearances. Mithya, appearance, false. And their contents, here is the dream world, here is the waking world. And the contents are all of these people and the chairs and the hall. All of these are appearances. Bhaved mithya. Why? Gunatraya vinirmitam. Because they are constituted of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. We have studied long back, I think, that sattva, rajas, tamas are the constituents of Maya. The constituents of Maya. Maya itself is made of sattva, rajas, tamas. And all the products of Maya are made of sattva, rajas, tamas. And they have no existence. Maya has no existence apart from its apart from its foundation, its adhara, its ground, which is Brahman. Are these terms making sense to you? By now we must be familiar with these terms. Maya has no existence apart from Brahman, just as the dream has no existence apart from the dreamer's mind. This world is constituted of Maya, and this Maya has no existence apart from you, the consciousness, Brahman. So, all the products of Maya, which are the furniture with which we furnish our waking world, our dream world, and the absences which we call our deep sleep world, all of that, they are Maya and hence they are false. And what is real? What is real? Asya drashta, the experiencer of all of these, the one which experiences the waking world, the one which experiences the dream world, and the one which experiences the darkness of the deep sleep world. The one before which these three rotate in unending succession, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and again waking, dreaming, deep sleep. That one, not the three states, but the one to which the three states appear, that witness, which is you. Yes, we're talking about you. You are the truth. You remember the story of King Janaka who dreamt that he lost a big battle and he was defeated, and then he woke up shaking and trembling on his bed, and then he asked whether that was true or this is true, whether this waking world in which I'm an undefeated king, or the dream world in nightmare in which I was defeated, which one is true? Is that true or this true? And the sage Ashtavakra came to his court and said, neither that is true, nor this is true. Because, same reason, this was not there in the dream. Your undefeated status as a king and emperor was not there in the dream. And in the dream, in that nightmare, what happened, the defeat and the terrible suffering, that's not here also. Neither this was in the dream, nor the dream is here now. So they mutually cancel each other out. Neither that is true, nor this is true. Then the king asks, is nothing true? And the sage, if you remember, he said, did you experience that dream? Yes. And are you experiencing this waking? Yes. So what's the one constant in all of these experiences? You, the experiencing consciousness. That is true. Neither this is true, nor that is true, but you, the experiencer, king, you are the truth. But you meaning not the body, not the person, but the experiencing consciousness to which all of this appears. So, asya drashta, the witness of the waking, the witness of the dream, and the witness of the deep sleep, gunatita, it transcends the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, it transcends maya. It is not bound by the three gunas. One way in which the three states are understood as products of gunas, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, waking is said to be a product of, it's heavily influenced by sattva. Dream is influenced by rajas, and deep sleep by tamas. In what sense? Because sattva is connected to knowledge. In waking, we actually gain new knowledge. We see, we think, and we experience things, and we generate knowledge. And in dream, that very thing is rehashed. That knowledge, that experience which we had in the waking stage, that is used to generate our, like movies, like pictures, they're strung together in our dreams. And so we have experiences based on what we collected in the waking state. That's rajas. And deep sleep, the equation is very simple. Tamas means a darkness, a dull, inert, non-moving, not knowingness. So these three states, in the waking, sattva predominates, in the dream, rajas predominates, and in deep sleep, tamas predominates. But the witness of these three is unaffected by tamas, rajas, sattva. That's what he says, gunatita, transcends. The consciousness transcends the three gunas. Then what happens? Nityam, eternal. You see that the three states come and go. The waking comes and goes away every day. The dream comes and goes away every day. And the deep sleep comes and goes away every day. But the witness neither comes nor goes. The witness consciousness cannot disappear. It's not like a light, you throw the switch and it's gone. Why? Because then what would testify to the disappearance of that witness consciousness? Follow this carefully. To admit to the existence of anything, it must be testified to by consciousness. It must be experienced by consciousness. If consciousness itself is to disappear, that disappearance has to be experienced by consciousness. To assert that consciousness is no longer there, how will you assert it? Without consciousness. It's logically impossible again. Yes. Question? There are two questions. For consciousness to disappear, you see, it is eternal. Why is it eternal? Clearly the waking, dreaming and deep sleep cycle. Every day we see that. And since you experience waking, dreaming and deep sleep in a continuous succession, you, the experiencer, you don't come and go. The waking, dreaming and deep sleep comes and goes with their contents. So, you, the experiencer, are not subject to coming and going, hence eternal. What is non-eternal? That which is born and which dies, which is created and which is destroyed, which comes and goes. That's non-eternal. So that's one. But a deeper reason is what I just said. Consciousness, the way we understand it, you cannot even logically speak of its disappearance, speak of its destruction. Why? To speak of anything, to assert anything, you require consciousness. So consciousness testifies to the presence or the absence of objects. Whatever comes in front of it, you testify to your presence or absence, to the presence or absence of those things. If consciousness itself were to disappear, if it was an event, what would testify to its presence or absence? What would testify that, yes, there's no more consciousness now? You need consciousness for that. Another consciousness. So another consciousness. And this other and another, in Vedanta, it's the one and the same consciousness. This and the other are created by body and mind. So consciousness cannot disappear. Okay, Bill had a question.
Does consciousness require a body?
All right. The question is, does consciousness require a body? I'll answer that at two levels. One level is the materialist, reductionist scientific paradigm, where the idea is matter and energy are fundamental. Time, space, matter and energy are fundamental. Matter has organized itself into ever more complex forms, living matter, life, and life has evolved into more sophisticated organisms, and they have evolved somehow through a process of Darwinian evolution, nervous systems and brains, and the brains have generated mind and consciousness. This is the mainstream materialistic point of view, in which case consciousness becomes an epiphenomenon, a product of neurochemical reactions going on in the brain. In that case, the question, it resolves itself very easily. Does consciousness require a brain? Does consciousness require a body? Obviously, because it's a product of the body. It's an epiphenomenon of the body, in the materialist reductionist sense. It's like asking, does a flame require a candle? Of course. It's the candle burning which produces the flame. Advaita Vedanta has just the opposite take on this. Advaita Vedanta says consciousness is fundamental. A body to exist even requires consciousness. That fundamental consciousness. Body requires consciousness to be alive, to exist, and to function. You see, the difference is like this. From a scientific materialist point of view, consciousness is something that occurs in some bodies. Living body, sophisticated living body, evolved body has consciousness. Consciousness is a property of some bodies. From an Advaitic, Vedantic perspective, a body is something that appears in consciousness. Now, let me ask you a question. Check with your experience right now. Are you a body with consciousness, or are you experiencing your body in your consciousness? Check right now. Look at your body. Aren't you experiencing this body in your awareness? Don't we say, I am aware of my body? The body and the world appear to you in your awareness. It's a whole new, very different way of looking at it. And this has the advantage, to my point of view, of being consistent with our experience, without violating any kind of scientific approach, without violating any kind of science. What science does it violate? It doesn't go against the science of matter, physics. It doesn't go against the science of biology. It doesn't go against the science of psychology. None of them. All of them are internally consistent, but the only point we are making is all of it appears to you in your I will not even say in your consciousness, in you the consciousness. When in Vedanta, at this stage, when we are talking about you, we mean consciousness. We don't mean you, the body-mind complex. We mean the consciousness. So yes. Now they seem to be irreconcilable, very different. Completely different, the 2 points of view. But here is now, the discussion has come to this point in consciousness studies, the hard problem of consciousness, where David Chalmers, who is our neighbor here in NYU, is actually speaking of consciousness as fundamental. Vedanta says consciousness is the one fundamental thing. Chalmers will not go so far. He says maybe we have to think of, just like time, space, matter and energy are fundamentals in our scientific worldview, we might have to think of consciousness as fundamental too, as one of the fundamentals. Yeah. So nitya, eternal, one, ekaha. We have already studied this, that is there a separate consciousness in each body and mind, or is there one background consciousness? So Vedanta holds that there is one background consciousness. We seem to be separate. Why? Because we identify ourselves with the body or with the mind. That's why we seem to be separate consciousnesses. Chidatmakaha, pure consciousness, the self which is pure consciousness. So what is this verse? The 3 states, waking, dreaming and deep sleep, they revolve, they are false, they appear and arise in one ocean of consciousness. And that one ocean of consciousness is eternal and one, everywhere. Those 3 states, waking, dreaming and deep sleep, are made of the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Whereas the witness consciousness, the witness of these 3 states, is beyond the 3 gunas, not touched by them. And that witness consciousness, you are. So, this is the teaching. Now, what Shankaracharya has done so far is that in the first stage, he showed that we are not the body and mind, we are the witness consciousness, stage 1. And stage 2, he has now showed that what the not self, the universe which is witnessed by consciousness, that not self is not apart from the self. So the non-duality of the self has been established, Advaitam. Now what he's going to do is, what seems to be very abstract philosophy, he's going to show from now on, from verse number 59, next verse onwards, till 88, nearly 30 verses, will be full of examples. A wonderful variety of examples will be given to make this clear. Again and again, with a variety of examples, what we come across in the world, he'll use those examples to show us what he means when he says, consciousness, you are consciousness, and this consciousness is non-dual. The consciousness alone is real, Brahman is real, and the world which appears to consciousness is just that, an appearance in consciousness. Examples, a lot of examples will be given to make it more and more clear. Let's see. Many of these examples I've used and actually took it from here. So let us see these examples, some of them. 59. Yadvan mridi ghata bhrantim, Yadvan mridi ghata bhrantim, Shuktau va rajata sthitim, Shuktau va rajata sthitim, Tadvad brahmani jivatvam, Tadvad brahmani jivatvam, Vikshamanena pashyati, Vikshamanena pashyati. As there is the delusion of a pot in clay, of silver in nacre, mother of pearl, just like that, there's a delusion of an individual being, Jeeva, in Brahman, the infinite consciousness. Upon examination, Vikshamane, upon investigation. Now this bears some explanation. Look at what he said, something shocking. Just as there's the delusion that there is a pot. There's no pot, there's only clay. You will say, what do you mean? I can see the pot. There's this big, fat, round pot in front of you on a table. How can you say there's no pot? A clay pot. He says, as there is a delusion of a pot in clay. Now, take the pot and examine it. Take a close look at it. It's made of clay. Where is the clay? The top of it is clay. The bottom of it is clay. In middle it is clay. Inside it's clay. Outside it's clay. In fact, it's clay through and through. If you examine the pot carefully, what will you find? Clay. When you touch it, what do you touch? Clay. Apart from that clay, follow this carefully. Apart from that clay, is there a thing called a pot? A substance called a pot? You say, Swami, you are holding it. But what are you really holding? The clay. If you think that there is a thing called a pot, something called a pot, then I'll say, keep the pot, give me the clay. You cannot. Because there is no such second thing called a pot. Remember, as we studied earlier, the experience of pot continues. You continue to see the pot. Even if after you understand that it is a pot, it is clay. You continue to see the pot. You can still keep water or milk in it. You need not stop using it. Empirical usage, vyavahara. You can call it a pot. You can use it as a pot. You can refer to it as a pot. All that continues. But you realize it's clay through and through. And it's a fact. Exactly like that, in you, the pure consciousness, this entire universe seems to be real. There is no such universe apart from you, the consciousness, the pure consciousness. Apart from Brahman, there is no such, first he says, Jeeva. There is no such thing as an individual being. This person you consider yourself, the Jeeva, the person. Swami so-and-so, Mr. so-and-so, Mrs. so-and-so. This person, that person does not exist apart from the consciousness, the real you. Apart from Brahman, there is no Jeeva, there is no sentient being. You can examine it just now. Think about it this way. Suppose I have an accident and I lose a hand. Do I exist? Yes, I exist. I am this miserable guy who lost a hand, but I am unhappy. But I exist. I know myself as a guy who had both hands. Now I have got only one hand. I lost the other one. If I lose, so that's a part of the body. Even if you lose different parts of the body, still exist. I still exist if I lose different parts of the body. There was this experiment, which I haven't checked it out. They're supposed to perform the first world's head transplant. They performed it? Is this person still alive? I don't know. You might ask, which person? If you transfer the head. Yes, they were actually supposed to, and it was, I thought it was a hoax, but it's in the Atlantic or somewhere, there was a whole article about it. It seems they performed it, but I don't know if they have performed it. It would have made worldwide news, yeah. They would be talking about it. Full body transplant, yes. So just the head, you can say the head was transplanted from one body to another, or you can say the body was, right? So I could just be the head without a body. Yes. Yeah. It has been carried out? Yeah. But it would have made tremendous news all over the world. I don't... Maybe. Yes. All right. All right. From the New York. Anyway, my point is that I'm making a philosophical point here. Technically, whether that's possible or not, it could very well be possible if they are going ahead with it. But technically the point is, I'm still the same person with a new body maybe. Same head with a new body. All right, let's go deeper. My thoughts, memories. I could lose quite a bit of my memories and I could still be, I am aware that I've lost, I can't remember many things. I could even have amnesia about my own name. But I would still be there as an aware entity who does not remember his own name, right? But suppose the awareness is not there, consciousness is not there. What remains in my life, in my experience? I'm asking you. Nothing. It's like a switch has been thrown. Suppose, make a philosophical experiment in your mind. The consciousness which shines upon the mind and the body. Body may function or part of it may be destroyed. Mind may function, a part of it may be destroyed. Memories may be there, maybe you'll forget. If you remember, you will say, I, the awareness, can recall certain things. If you forget, you will say, I, the awareness, cannot recall certain things. But if the awareness is not there, what remains? The body. No. You say, but Swami, the body remains. Yes, to you, but to that person? To that person, no experience of a body. The mind, no experience of a mind. Without consciousness, without awareness, that person does not exist. So what they are saying here is, just like that, like there is no thing called a pot, follow this carefully, no substance, no thing, no object called a pot other than the clay. There is no person, there is no Jeeva other than Brahman. Brahman means pure consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss. You do not exist except Brahman, as a pot does not exist except clay. Big claim. Let me do the other example. There are already 2 hands up. Good. Hold on to the question. Let me do the other example. All right, 3 hands. The other example is Shukti Rajata. Shukti is nacre. You know what is nacre? Mother of pearl. On the beach you find sometimes some mollusks have this shell which is iridescent, which shines in sunlight. From a distance it looks like silver. So the example, classic example in Sanskrit is a person gets fooled by it, thinks it's silver. Let me go and collect. There's so much silver on the beach, let me go and collect the silver. But turns out it's not there. That false silver, silver born of error, has no existence apart from the mother of pearl, that nacre. In the same way, you, the person, you have no existence apart from Brahman. Just as that pot is through and through clay, you are through and through pure consciousness. Just as that silver, so-called silver, is nothing but the nacre. The so-called person, you, are nothing but Brahman. And it's a good thing. You are the absolute eternal Brahman. Let's see the questions. All right. You had your hand up first.
I've got another question, Swami.
All right, ask.
Example.
Mhm.
So these 2 examples are slightly different.
Yes.
Because the first one talks about the substance, something is made of.
Yeah.
But the second one is like the snake and the rope.
Yes.
But is there something to take away from the difference?
Right. Okay. I'm glad you asked that question. I would have brought it up later also. The question she asked is for the benefit of our internet audience. By the way, from this session onwards, it's going to be uploaded. 2 kinds of examples. She said, look at the 2 examples they just gave. One was clay and pot, one example. The other one was nacre and silver. But the 2 examples are not the same. Immediately what our attention goes to is, the clay was shaped into a pot with an effort by some potter, and you call it a pot, and it's not wrong to call it a pot. Not only that, you can use it to hold water or your flowers or milk or whatever. Whereas the nacre never became silver. It was just mistaken as silver. It's in fact even wrong to call it silver, and you cannot use it as silver. All right? There's a difference. This often creates confusion. That's why in Advaita Vedanta, one thing to remember is how to use an example. An example is always used to prove one point, and only one point. And you must know that it's the teacher's job to tell you what is the point being made here. The point is not that Brahman is shaped into a person. Neither that there is a person appearing erroneously in Brahman. No. Neither of these points. The one common thing between the two examples is what? The only reality of the pot is clay. The only reality of the silver is nacre. The only reality about you is pure existence consciousness. The substance there is clay. The substance here of that erroneous silver is the nacre. The reality is nacre. The reality about you is pure consciousness. Everything that else that appears is a projection, is an appearance of Maya made of three gunas. It's not real. It's like a dream. The reality of everything that you see in a dream, every person, building, every occurrence, everything good, everything bad in a dream, what's the reality of that? What's the only thing that's real there? The dreamer's mind. Right? So exactly in that sense. There was another question there. Yes.
It's a little digression, but I wanted to talk about this in the last lecture. There's an article that Harvard magazine has that says Harvard may have pinpointed the source of human consciousness. They admit that they don't know what consciousness is, but they find out that they have to study a group of patients that are in vegetative states, people that came out of that state, and they made some comparisons and then they make some interesting points. So they find a particular place in the brain where they think that this
Consciousness originates. Okay. You want me to comment on that? Yeah. All right. So the question was that in a recent article it is said that in Harvard they seem to have pinpointed the location of consciousness. Now remember, in modern consciousness studies, scientific consciousness studies, when they refer to consciousness, the word is very ambiguous. They have multiple connotations of the word consciousness. In Vedanta, it's very clear what they mean by consciousness. Yeah. In Vedanta, anything that you experience, the object of your experience is not consciousness. That which experiences it is consciousness. Okay. Now, in modern consciousness studies, what are the different meanings of consciousness? Conscious behavior is consciousness. Talking is consciousness. Thinking is consciousness. Memory is consciousness. Language is consciousness. These are all examples of consciousness. Vedanta would say you are using a very blunt tool here. You are mixing up the activities of the body with consciousness. You're mixing up the activities of the prana with consciousness. You're mixing up the activities of the mind with consciousness. You're mixing up the activities of intellect with consciousness. You're mixing up the activities of the memory with consciousness. Mind, memory, intellect, body, language, all of them are objective. Why? They can be experienced. The real consciousness is that which is experiencing all of these. Right. Having said that, so the paradigm still is in consciousness studies, what they're desperately trying to do is to somehow reduce consciousness to the brain. So they'll be most happy if the whole phenomenon of consciousness goes away and you're all zombies, you're proved to be zombies. They'll be most happy. That solves the problem. But if they have to show that consciousness, the easiest way to solve the problem of consciousness in modern consciousness studies is to show that somehow the brain generates consciousness. So they'll be looking for places where, if that is functioning, then the person displays conscious behavior. What Vedanta would say is that maybe you have found something in the brain which is linked to the functioning of consciousness, linked to the functioning of consciousness and mind. Some psychological activity depends on that particular place, the neuronal activity there. It's somewhat like you walk through the door. All of you have walked through the door. Now somebody watching that would say that the door produces a lot of people. I have found the source of all these people. It's the door. Yes. Whenever they are here, they come through that door. They will not say they come to the door produces them. If the door doesn't produce them, there's nobody. So the door is the source of all these people. But door is just a gateway. And according to Vedanta, consciousness exists well before the brain. Consciousness is prior to the mind also. Consciousness interacts with the mind interacts with the brain. But it's not that these studies are without value for Vedanta. They are very valuable for Vedanta. Because at one point, they might come into some understanding of mind-brain interaction. Consciousness-mind interaction is even further back, more fundamental. But mind-brain interaction, because what is the mind so far, they have no grasp on the whole thing. They would be happy if there were no minds. Yeah. Only brains without minds would solve the problem for science. Mind and consciousness are just messing up the whole thing for science. What Vedanta says, all your science and your neuroscience and Harvard and pinpointing consciousness are in consciousness. The whole problem of consciousness appears to consciousness. And an attempt to solve it is an attempt in consciousness. And any solution that appears will be in consciousness. Note that consciousness is prior to all of that. Okay, that's the answer. Yes?
Maharaj, this is about the Janak story that you just brought up. So he asks, was that real or is this real? Referring to the dream state?
Yes.
Right? So I understand that from an absolute perspective, none of the three states are real.
Yes.
They do not last. But in a relative world, I want to know how would Advaita take this apart. In a relative world, would you say that the waking state is more real than the dream state?
All right. Good question. The question is that from an absolute standpoint, neither the waking, nor dreaming, nor deep sleep are absolutely real because they do not exist apart from consciousness, just as a pot does not exist apart from clay. But in a relative sense, would you say that the waking world is more real than the dream world? Advaita Vedanta would say yes. Yes. Why? Because when you wake up from dreams into this waking world, forget Vedanta. When you wake up every day, what do you say? Oh, that was a dream. I mean, you would say, thank God, that was just a nightmare, it didn't happen. Or you would say, oh, that was a dream, I wish it had happened, it didn't happen. When you say it's a dream or a nightmare, basically what you mean is, I have woken up into reality that was imagined. So you have this cognition, a sense of correction. Exactly like the snake rope or the nacre and silver. When you go near that and you say that, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope. Then you would say, would you say that the snake is less real and the rope is more real? Yes. Would you say that the nacre is more real and the silver is less real? Yes. Would you say the waking is more real and the dream less real? Yes. Having said that, I will deny the whole thing now. There is another way. There are different ways of looking at Advaita. There are different levels of Advaita. What I just said, one grade of reality is dreaming, a higher grade of reality is waking, and the highest grade of reality is Brahman. That is Advaita 101, basic Advaita. There is a more advanced form of Advaita, which has two states of reality, not three states of reality. Notice that we have talked about three states of reality. Dream is one state. Dream, silver nacre, rope snake, one state, one kind of reality. Higher reality than that, waking, the rope itself, the nacre itself, the ground of illusion. That's the higher state of reality. Higher than that, Brahman. So three states of reality. That's one way of looking at Advaita. There is a more advanced form of Advaita which takes a look at two states of reality. They don't consider waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. They say there are only two states, dreaming and sleep. Waking is also a dream is also a dream. And there's another stage in which is deep sleep. There are only two states, and the reality is beyond them both. That's the witness of these two states. They equate waking and dreaming. You'd say, wouldn't that be crazy? Yeah, they do that, and they have arguments. I will not run through them right now. If you're interested, Swami Nikhilananda's translation of the Upanishads, where the volume in which he has translated Mandukya Upanishad, which is the classic text for waking, dreaming, deep sleep. He he has an appendix where he takes up objections, 10 objections, you wouldn't even think about them, which are against equating dreaming and waking. When you say, no, waking is waking and dream is dream. Because of these objections, I will not allow you to equate them. 10 objections. And one by one, he knocks down each objection till you get this very weird, creepy feeling that this could also be, am I in the Matrix? Is this a dream? You actually, the 10 arguments, and he knocks them all down. So that's the second kind of Advaita. Even that's intermediate. That's not really advanced Advaita. There's an even more advanced Advaita. So the second kind of Advaita says, whatever you experience is a dream. And the absence and the experience of blankness is sleep. And the reality is beyond sleep and dream. Beyond this, there's another kind of Advaita, which is called Ajatavada, non-creationism, the teaching of Shankaracharya's guru's guru, Gaudapada Acharya, that we will see in Mandukya Upanishad hopefully sometime. Where, if you say, this world is true or this world is false, their reply will be, what world? There is only Brahman. You see, this world, no, this is not a world. This is the shining forth of Brahman. One Swami in Uttarakhand was interviewed, and there's a story in Prabuddha Bharata, in one of our journals. They said that, the Swami said, there is no world at all. Brahman alone exists. No question of dream and Maya and three gunas, none of this. Brahman alone is the reality. Then somebody asked, but Swami, this world is there. You can see yourself, you can see the world. What do you say to this? And the Swami said, oh, this. The Hindi term was, ye to Brahma ki lapahat hai. This is the shining forth of Brahman. Like the flame flickers, the same way it's a poetic way of putting it. This is the flickering of Brahman. There's only one reality. There's not one reality and a falsity. It's just one reality. So that's the last form of Advaita. But we are taking our stand on much more safer ground. And I say yes. If you think the dream is a reality, waking is a greater reality, I'll say yes. I agree with you. I'm okay with you on that. The Holy Mother, I'll come to you. The Holy Mother, she seems to favor the second one. In a dialogue with Swami Arupananda, which you find, she says, my child, this is also a dream. And the Swami objected. He said, how can this be a dream? Every day you dream, you go into a different dream world. Those things come and go. But you wake up into this world. This world is more stable. Right? When you wake up, your car and your house and your... So he says, you wake up into the waking world is stable. How can this be a dream? She didn't go into Advaita dialectics and arguments. She burst out laughing and she said, be that as it may, my child, it is nothing more than a dream. Bill has a comment, yes.
Well, how about Dr. Johnson's argument and kicking the stone and saying that thus are disproved?
Yes, he's referring to Dr. Johnson and Bishop Berkeley. In Subjective Idealism, Bishop Berkeley said it's all in my mind, right? And Dr. Johnson is reputed to have kicked the stone and said, thus I refute your subjective idealism. But the whole thing could be in the mind also. In your dream also you can kick a stone and feel pain. A dream stone with your dream foot and feel dream pain, right? The whole thing is based on consciousness. Let me just go ahead a little bit because we have almost run out of time. Upon examination, vikshamane, upon examination, the person does not exist. It's Brahman alone. Pot is a name given to a particular form of clay. In the same way, a person, Jeeva, it's a name. The substance is Brahman. In the same way, let us look at verse number 60. Yatha mridi ghato nama, yatha mridi ghato nama, kanake kundalabhidha, kanake kundalabhidha, shukto hi rajatakhyati, shukto hi rajatakhyati, jiva shabdas tatha pare, jiva shabdas tatha pare. It is name alone. What does he say? Just as pot is a name given to clay, that particular bit of clay. Just as earring, kundala is earring, I think. The earring is a name given to gold, that particular form, that ornament made of gold. What's the reality there? The reality is gold. There's no such thing as an earring. You'll say, what do you mean? I paid so much for the earring. You paid for the gold. So the earring is nothing other than a name given to that piece of gold. Just as silver is nothing other than a name given to that erroneous perception of nacre. In the same way, Jeeva, individual sentient being, is a name given to Brahman, to that absolute reality. We have given a name, being here. It's a name. This is actually based on Chandogya Upanishad. There is no thing called a pot. There is no thing called an ornament. There is no thing called an iron implement, apart from the clay, apart from the gold, apart from the iron. Then what is a pot? It's a name alone. What's an earring? It's a name alone. And an use, and a form, but no substance, no reality behind it. Nama, vacharambhanam. It is based on, that's the language used in Chandogya Upanishad, based on linguistic usage. You see, what is being said here is very interesting. If you use words, then they mean something. Right? If you use words, then they mean something. When I use three names, book, mic, clock. Book, mic, clock. How many names have I used? 3. Here's a book, here's a mic, here's a clock. How many objects are there? 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now look at the strange situation. Pot, clay. How many names did I use? 2. How many objects are there? How many objects are there? 1. Yes. There is no separate object answering to the word name pot. There is something answering to the name clay, but there is no distinct object answering to the name pot. You'll say, that's it, that's the pot. But you're touching the clay, you're pointing to the clay. I can show you the clay separate from the pot. Can you show me the pot separate from the clay? You cannot. This is the strange thing that Advaita points out. It's an enchantment created by language. It's a spell woven by words. Maya works through language. The claim being made here is tremendous, unthinkable. We know what it's saying. You are God right here, right now. Always where you are, always will be. You just don't know it. You see, the important thing here is to understand the characteristic of this absolute reality, the definition of that reality. What do you mean by Brahman? We are using the word Brahman. We are using the word absolute. We are using the word pure consciousness. Once you understand what is meant by that, it will become blazingly obvious that I am that, I was, and all of us are, and we will continue to be. And that solves all of our problems. But it's just that we don't recognize. It's like a person goes to the forest in search of a cow. Now, it is essential that the person knows what a cow is. Otherwise, even if the person finds the cow, what will happen? He won't know that he has found it. He won't know that this is a cow. Or might be in great doubt. Is this the cow? Because the person doesn't know what he has found. Sri Ramakrishna gave an example. It's a mind-blowing concept. If you just know this, enlightenment is instantaneous here and now. You are free forever. Sri Ramakrishna gave a very wonderful example. There was this washerman, and he stumbled upon a shiny stone. And it's a nice stone, very shiny. It's actually a huge diamond, but he didn't know. So he used it to scrub his clothes, which he was washing. One day he thought, it's very nice, and I've never seen a stone like this. Let me take it to my friend who's a vegetable seller. He might know a little more than me. So he takes him to the vegetable seller. Take that piece of stone to the vegetable seller. And the vegetable seller looks at it and he says, yeah, this is a weird piece of stone and I like it. I'll give you a bag full of potatoes or brinjals for it. Something worth 10 rupees maybe. And the man was not satisfied, the washerman. He said, let me take it to the jeweler. And finally, the story is that finally goes to a diamond merchant who sees this and he says, my God, this is fantastic. It's the most perfect, biggest diamond I've ever seen. I'll give you 10 million rupees for it. Now, that same piece of stone, which the washerman had and he thought it's all that it's good for is scrubbing clothes. The vegetable seller thought it's good for a bag of potatoes or brinjals, or I'll give you 10 rupees for it. And the person who really knows what it is willing to give 10 million rupees for it. It's really worth 10 million rupees because the person has understood what it is. We have that right now. But we are unfortunately like that washerman. We have got that Brahman, pure consciousness, existence, consciousness, and bliss right here. But what are we doing? We are using it to walk and talk and earn money and be miserable and hate people and fight wars and lead our lives and think that we are growing old, that think that we are diseased and think that we will die. I am lonely, I am unhappy, I hate you. This is what we are using it. I think the washerman used it for better than we are using it. We are using this infinite consciousness, which is the mind of infinite bliss. We are using it to make ourselves perfectly miserable. Why? The answer given by Vedanta is Maya. Yeah. It's right here. And Vedanta is like that diamond merchant who will point out what you have already got. Vedanta will not give you anything new. You've already got it. The washerman's drishti, viewpoint, paradigm about the stone changed completely. It's the most valuable thing that I've ever got in my life. Anybody in our family or in our whole community has ever got. Even a dealer in diamonds has never seen such a diamond. Exactly like that, what we have already got, Vedanta introduces us to it. We don't recognize it because we don't know the characteristics of what we are looking for. We've got it right now. Anybody who has ever been enlightened, who has ever found God, found it in the here and now, found it and said that it's not that I have found something new. It was always there. The enlightened person finds God everywhere, in everything, in every action, is always in place. It does not say, my God is here and my God is not here. No. That person is not fully enlightened. Pratibodha viditam matam. In every experience of life, if you find Brahman, you are enlightened. How is that possible? What is common to every experience of life, to waking, dreaming, and deep sleep? Consciousness. You are it. We don't recognize it, and hence disaster befalls us. If you recognize it, if you would just, Vedanta introduces you to yourself. If you would just recognize yourself as what you truly are, Vivekananda would say with pathos, if only you knew yourself as you truly are, it would solve all your problems. There's this story about how many years ago, do you remember General Colin Powell? He was the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. He was in England at that time, and he was traveling through, but he saw that Professor Stephen Hawking was going to give a talk in an English town. It's a real story, it seems. And so he said, I want to see that. And he has his numerous military people, aides, arrange a flight for me, I'll go there and attend the talk. And they rush to the airport, we'll get our tickets somehow. The flight which will make it to that town in time to hear the talk, it's fully booked. And that lady who was at the counter, she was overwhelmed. She saw all these people with all their medals and very important looking military people, and they're telling her, you must get the general on that plane. He has to hear a talk by Professor Stephen Hawking. It's most important. You have to get the general on the plane. And the poor lady, what could she do? She said, I'll do my best, sir. And she sees all these very important looking military people crowding around her. And she says, okay, I'll bump one passenger off the plane and put him on the next flight, and you go. So the general goes there. And when he reaches that place, they say, I'm sorry, sir, we have to cancel the talk. Why? Stephen Hawking couldn't make it because he was bumped off the flight. Because this poor lady didn't know who Stephen Hawking was. She saw this weird and unimportant, sickly-looking guy on a wheelchair. You can go later. You can go on the next flight. The general has to go first. Apparently, it's a true story. I heard it in a management case presentation. Now, not recognizing what happened, introducing you to yourself. That's all that Vedanta does. I'll end with a little story. It's a story, one of those beautiful little stories which the Swamis in the Himalayas have. What does Vedanta do? It's like this. Again, a washerman. This washerman has a donkey, and he loads all the clothes on the donkey and goes to the riverbed. If you've seen washermen in India do that, they will take the clothes there and unload the clothes and wash the clothes and dry the clothes, and they tie the donkey to a nearby tree, and when the clothes are dry, they'll pack it up, load it on the donkey, untie the donkey, go back home. Now this washerman unloaded the clothes, and I was about to go to the river, then he saw I had forgotten to get the rope for the donkey. He said, oh my God, it's a disaster. What if the donkey wanders off and lose the donkey? And so he's in all of a flutter. What do I do now? And then this gentleman is passing by. He sees the washerman in a quandary and asks, what's wrong? This is the problem. The gentleman said, don't worry. Take the donkey to the tree and go through the motions of tying it to the tree. Show it that you're tying it to the tree. The donkey is used to being tied to the tree. So he does that. And he goes through the motions of tying it to the tree. And the donkey, and to his amazement, when he's washing the clothes, he looks back nervously and sees the donkey is just munching grass and standing right there. Exactly in the spot where it's supposed to stand. It's been standing for years together. Just there. Creature of habit. He's very happy. And then he loads the clothes back after a day of washing and drying, and puts in the donkey and tells the donkey, he gives the command, move. And donkey doesn't move. Move. And donkey just shakes its head and doesn't move. And this man thinks that maybe that gentleman did some magic on my donkey. He runs to the gentleman's house and says, this is the problem. What do I do? The donkey is not moving. And the gentleman said, just pretend to untie it. Show the donkey that you're untying it. He said, okay, that's great. He comes back, and in front of the donkey, he very ostentatiously, unties it and shows the donkey, yeah, you're free now. Move. And the donkey moves. We are in no better condition than the donkey. You are Brahman, always were, are, and always will be. You are ever free. Nothing in this universe can ever destroy you. You have imagined yourself that you are tied to this tree of samsara. And you behave exactly that as if you are bound to this body and mind. You react as if you are a body. You react as if you are a mind. Who is the you who reacts? Consciousness. With the body and mind. Completely forgotten that you are the ever free consciousness. But you react as if this samsara is real and I am this body and mind in this samsara struggling to make my way. And this little body, immediately you have a vast universe of millions of light years and billions of stars and galaxies. It will come later. That all, he says, the universes, it talks about the multiverse, it will come in a verse next. They're all imagined in you, the pure consciousness. The moment you tie yourself to a body, you become a tiny speck of matter in a vast ocean of matter. The moment you tie yourself to your thoughts, you become a stream, delicate stream of thought, prone to being wounded and pleased and made miserable by the slightest, by a word. Vivekananda says, slave to a good word, slave to a nasty word. We are bound by a little bit of happiness, slave to a little bit of happiness, slave to a little bit of misery. We have enslaved ourselves. We have tied ourselves like that donkey. And what Vedanta does is nothing more than going through the motions of untying the donkey and showing you that you are free. Yes. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanam Astu.